2021 has not been a great year when it comes to furry conventions. Between the Megaplex attendee who caught COVID and decided to go to Denver anyways, as well as just, well, what happened while Megaplex and Denver were being held, it's safe to say that the whole convention scene right now isn't doing too hot. And the vaccination policies being all around the place for cons like Biggest Little and Midwest have only gone to reassure me that if I were to go to a furry convention in this day and age, I would probably be taking about 15 years off my own life just purchasing the plane ticket. But given how advances are being made when it comes to vaccines that aren't just for people with horse personas, I'm sure conventions slated for 2022 will go over much smoother. So, what conventions do we have to look forward to for next year? The name just had to be a pun, didn't it? America's Anthro convention, Free For All, has been announced to take place on Memorial Day weekend of 2022. They even have Two Griffin as an honored guest, a ranting comedian known for, well...
So, did you hear about this? Some chick goes into an internet chat room and a couple of cunt sticks in there decide they're gonna make fun of her. Why were they making fun of her? Who the fuck knows? Maybe she had kangaroo testicles growing out of her eye socket or something.
Edgy ranting. Just the usual style of anti-SJW content that was prominent back then, with none of the actual humor to accompany it.
Say, hey! This steak tastes like skunk taint!
There was also the whole thing of his past boyfriend getting hit with federal charges for allegedly possessing CP, but that's an entire other tangent into the rabbit hole that is the history of Two Griffin. So, not the best impression going off with the special guest alone, but it's pretty rude to judge a book by its cover, right? An edgy, honored guest with a history of recklessly pushing the envelope shouldn't take away from enjoying the convention, right? So let's see a bit more about what the Woo Association has in store for this convention. Also, I probably should announce that before we go further, I have a bit of a bias. You see, I have an issue trusting anything that uses a lion as a mascot. I'm sorry guys, I've just been burned so many times that I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust a lion again. Getting back to our roots, they don't make things like they used to. This year we're celebrating Anthro by getting back to our roots where it all started, a love for animals. Then we have a Two Griffin advert. Originally in Oklahoma a native, Two the Ranting Griffin will be returning to his roots in Oklahoma at Free For All 2022 to provide you with evenings of comedy and his trademark rants. Can't wait. Unfortunately, in 2016, his excursion in comedy was considered cancelled after being accused of being a homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic, racist Nazi for the usual sin of publicly declaring a belief and passion for the concept of free speech. Now, what the buzzword soup here is trying to say is that Two Griffin was targeted by the big scary cancel mob for just using the First Amendment. You know, without actually saying what he used the First Amendment for. In 2003, he made a live journal titled Hail Hitler, where he rants about the supposed double standard of racism. In 2012, he was going on about how child molesters are the saviors of their own victims. And in 2018, he was going on about how there are no victims of pedophilia. So if he's not any of the things listed here, and he doesn't believe any of what he spouted at the time, then you might as well just label your special host as an attention whore. Anyways, if you haven't already realized it by the whole America theme and going back to the roots talk, the premise of this convention is freedom of speech. We all love a little freedom of speech here on this channel. It keeps thoughts flowing, lets you hear different opinions, lets you know who to avoid. It's just a wonderful little thing all in all. Though I find it pretty weird that this page is essentially saying that the fandom has to return to how it was to, I guess, appreciate free speech. The thing is, free speech wasn't exactly less misunderstood than it is now. And if we were to go back any further, you'd essentially just have a mix of cartoonists and some guys in fursuits banging in bought out hotels. And in that case, you could just add children to that and bam, modern day furry convention. Well, not all of them, of course, but you get what I mean. I'm sure we all have different thoughts as to what the roots of the furry fandom are, but Frederick's video on that is probably as close as a concrete view as we're gonna get. It definitely doesn't help that the convention was just kind of thrown out there without anything but a vague synopsis and this here attendance policy. First up, all attendees must be 18 years of age or older to attend this event. No exceptions. Now this, at the very least, feels responsible in a way. I'm a bit iffy on whether all cons should do this, but with the cases of sex offenders being allowed to attend other conventions, I can at least respect the decision. Other than that, it just seems to be your usual FurCon TOS. They even prohibit wearing sexual paraphernalia and fetish gear. I do hope that includes the accursed helm that is the pup hood, but with this fandom you can never really tell. This is an opportunity to show the world the best side of the Anthro fandom, and not the place to test the limits of what is acceptable or too edgy. I sincerely hope they adhere to that, and don't book a guest who's primarily known for testing the limits of what's acceptable or too edgy. But other than that, there is essentially zero information on what this convention is going to entail. It's an 80-20 coin flip, the other side mostly being weighed by the history of the special guests. But we have to remember that this convention isn't supposed to be happening until May of next year, so there's still a lot that can happen during that time. But with this convention being announced in the start of September, you gotta wonder what the public opinion on it is. Or maybe you're like me and only found out about the convention due to said public opinion. In which case you'd know that people are not happy with this announcement. As the announcement was made on Twitter, that's where a majority of the uproar was held. You had users who spread the info about the wrongdoings of those involved with the con. While done in a gratingly painful tone, I can get behind the effort. Then there are those comparing the Awu Association's logo to a Turkish white supremacy group. That's actually an Islamo-fascist Turkish supremacist group. Do correct me if I'm wrong about that, since my history isn't all that, but you can't deny that this is a bit of a stretch. It's kind of like calling Beowulf from Skullgirls a white supremacist because he has a special that shows wolves howling at a moon. A conspiracy I am willing to support if it gets him removed from the game, but that's a different story. If I were to throw my own conspiracy theory into the ring for a moment here, I see that this convention isn't even gonna happen. This could all just be some ploy to make people go, the furries are too woke, make the fandom great again. Like, you know, this could all just be some rage bait scheme to make furries look worse, right? Well, there's a reason I called that a conspiracy theory. Now, I really wanted to refrain from calling this a Nazi con or Fash con like most people on Twitter have. But they sure made that a fucking challenge. Chat logs from an unofficial free-for-all Telegram chat show a user named Connie Lupine going on a spree of unintelligence. Comments of transphobia, anti-LGBT, and anti-Semitism I don't even think needs to be repeated aloud. The only reason I bring up Connie Lupine's hate vomit is due to their close connection to Free-for-All's head, Peace Wolf. Along with the past Telegram chats with Connie and Peace comparing herself to Jesus for it, it would seem that after the Telegram messages leaked, Peace or someone close to the convention would reach out to Connie saying that they didn't want to chat for the convention, presumably due to the screenshots that were leaked prior. Connie would then go on to say, "I had high hopes, but after speaking directly to convention administration last night, I was left with a very strong impression that they weren't prepared to actually run this con. They have things set up more like a local meet group than America's Anthro convention." And even though this entire agonizing timeline only played out in the span of 8 days, I have one last post to leave you with before we come to a close here. Because if transphobia wasn't hard enough to stomach, now you have that along with encouraging someone to off themselves. The user even thought it was funny to hide behind the name of Chris Chan's arch nemesis? I think that's what they're supposed to be. Regardless, I do think Peace Wolf's history of tweets shows that they probably won't be denouncing these comments anytime soon, even as they have plenty of time to at least try, seeing as the convention isn't until late spring. But from what we've seen so far, to the special guests, to the head of the convention, to their associate, even if this has yet to happen, even if it gets redeemed somehow or called off, one thing's for certain. This thing is going to go up in flames regardless of the outcome. But hey, Free-for-All's gonna have a ball pit. So it all balances out in the end.